Hi, it's Greeny, and you know what? You deserve a break. Enjoy a delicious Reason Chewy Chocolate Caramel and get ready to celebrate. Reason has teamed up with ESPN to give you and a guest a VIP trip to the ESPY Awards in L.A. It's the reason to party at the ESPYs sweepstakes. You could walk the red carpet, attend the award show, and even enjoy exclusive post-party access, giving you a reason to dust off that tux. Details on ESPN.com/reason. That's RIESEN. And remember, for double chocolate indulgence that lasts and lasts, all you need is one good reason. No purchase necessary. See ESPN.com/reason.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Subscribe now by going to the Listen tab in the ESPN app.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Here we are, back in better than ever. Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the shell pin to a performance line. The old saying goes that March comes in like a lion and goes out like a lamb. And in the case of the world champion Cleveland Cavaliers, it couldn't be more accurate. Entering this month, LeBron and company looked like a lock to get back to the finals, maybe win the whole thing again. Exiting March, they are weakened, they are wounded, and Golic, they are looking very, very beatable.
As LeBron says, we are in a bad spot. They're at the team meeting point whenever you hit that part of the season.
Let's give everyone a refresher on that. We've been talking about this for 18 years, but I always love your take on the team meeting.
Well, the team meeting is always an interesting one that it all depends on leadership of a team and where a lot of times team meeting devolve into areas you don't even expect them to go and then end up kind of being a waste of time. If you can get in, get out, state your cases, and move on, they can be a positive thing as long as you're not having 10 of them a year. If you have that one a year, maybe two, about a specific reason, here they're not playing good defense. Last night, as we'll get into it, was horrible offense. They're obviously not playing well. Got swept by the Bulls this year. So if you talk about it, that's fine. But it usually goes way longer than it should, and it usually starts to go to areas that it shouldn't, and usually starts bringing up things that really don't need to be brought up at that time. And sometimes you can leave there with a couple of more questions than you really had going in.
One of them is, guys, we're slow. And that's really not something that can be addressed in a team meeting.
No.
And the other is, one of the reasons we play bad defense is that we have a collection of bad defensive players.
Yeah.
The guys who play a lot of minutes on that team, a lot of them are just not good defensive players.
Well, you know what's going to be the talk that is going to be the want-to. Hey, the want-to's got to pick up. You know, whatever. If we're not skilled in this, rarely in a meeting will someone admit that they're not good enough to do it. But I get your point. That they will basically, that will be the talk. We have to up our energy level. We have to up our try level. We have to up our, intensity level. That's going to be the gist of that, because we know they're a good offensive team. We know they're not a great defensive team, and that's not going to change from a personnel standpoint. So, the effort or better execution is what has to step up for them. So that's the gist of it. And I don't want to make it sound like team meetings never work. Team meetings can absolutely work, but our point of this is the Cleveland Cavaliers, who we thought were going to walk to the finals for that rubber match against Golden State, are now at a position with a handful of games left in the regular season to say, A, we're in a bad spot, and B, we're having a team meeting about it.
Well, I'm going to give credit, and he's going to be in here in a half hour, to your son, Mike Golic Jr., because in the first 2 minutes of their show today, he made two excellent points. He made one excellent point, and then he basically gave you a topic for the entire show today in the second. The first thing he pointed out was, and these are always worth looking at, and look, great teams win on the road. Golden State has won on the road, and the Cavaliers, when they're at their best, certainly should be able to win on the road. But we will talk a lot about their terrible month of March. They did play 12 road games in the month of March. Right. I heard that from Mike Golic Jr. this morning. It's worth mentioning. It's not an excuse.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Right?
Yeah, I didn't. I wouldn't have either. I wasn't sitting looking at it. He obviously did. So that's a factor, right? So they played. They played 16 games in the month, 12 of them on the road. When you look at the schedules, Golden State only has one road game remaining. We're very close to the end of this season. So the Cavaliers played 12 road games in the month of March. So take that into account however you wish. The other thing that I'm going to hold off on the question. He raised a question, which is a really good one. I'll hold off until he gets here. He'll be here in about 20 minutes, and I'll ask him to answer his own question. I'll ask it to you, and we'll go from there. But here's the one thing I'm going to hesitate from doing. I cannot be on the campaign that I'm on about the total I am frustrated as a basketball fan. As when I grew up, we talk a lot more about football on this show than we do basketball.
Right.
But basketball was my first love.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first sport I fell in love with as a fan. Again, when I say my first love,
right.
It's not like I was Bob Cousy. but that was the sport that I loved. And it frustrates me how completely meaningless they have made the regular season between resting and tanking and Greg Popovich and everyone else saying, well, being the number one seed doesn't really make any difference. They're telling you in every single way they can but that it's meaningless.
Right.
So if that is so, you is using like a little deductive reasoning.
Right.
If such is the case, then we cannot overreact to a bad regular season month for a team we know knows how to turn it on when they get to the part that matters.
See, that's where we have to get to. But what I'll say is last year when they were winning the championship and even the year before when they got there and lost, where were they defensively? So I think you can have a little bit of panic. And there's one thing if you go 6-10 the first month of the season, the second month of the season. The last month of the season, going into the playoffs when your defense is playing horribly and your personnel isn't going to change, your second worst defensively in efficiency, and that hasn't been the case. So that's the new wrinkle, the only thing I would add, because they can turn it on in the playoffs to a point. Everybody can turn it on to a point when the intensity level picks up in the playoffs. But that is hanging there, without question, the fact that we can't stop anybody. We are bad defensively, and that's something that hasn't happened to us in the last 2 years on the run to the finals for this team. So that, I believe, to them is stuck in their head as the possibility of an uh-oh moment.
Yeah, I mean, to whatever, I don't know, you're going to start hearing names like Matthew Dellavedova and all these others that they're going to miss. But the reality of it is the guys who are going to count down to play big minutes for them, Kevin Love is not a good defensive player.
Right.
Kyrie Irving is not a good defensive player. To whatever degree Kyle Korver is on the floor, he's not a good defensive player. So there's a lot of that going on for the Cavs. How about this month for LeBron James? He's not panicking, but it sure doesn't sound happy.
Counting the hours until March is over?
No. I'm never one to shortcut the process. It's all part of the process. That's what I live by. That's how I built my career. So, tomorrow's another day. It's another opportunity, but we got some work to do. And we don't have a lot of time.
Well, all cliche type things. Not disappointed with the effort, he said. Just in a bad spot. Got to try and figure it out. They had the team meeting after, but nobody wanted to talk about it. But Kyrie Irving said, we're taking steps forward. We took a step forward, after the meeting. So, that's what you're going to get from them at this point. But I do think there is some thought that they can turn it on in the playoffs, that they're good enough to do it. But in the back of their minds thinking, okay, we're hurting on defense right now.
We're going to do the more I think about Mikey's question, the more I like it. When he gets in here, we will pose a question that we can turn into a poll, and I think it'll be a really interesting one. So you will, for lack of a better word, put your money where your mouth is on just how concerned you are about the way the Cleveland Cavaliers are playing going into this postseason to defend their title. Let's lead off the top with that, actually, Mike. There was another note in that game. LeBron James, in a loss, did pass Shaquille O'Neal, so he's now 7th on the NBA's all-time scoring list.
He's just under 9,800 points away from passing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for first on the list. Here's the rub with those two. Here's what goes on. So he's getting ready to finish his 14th season. When Kareem finished his 14th season, and so when they both finish their 14th season, Kareem will have 1,211 more points than LeBron. Difference is, after Kareem's 14th season, he was 35 years old. LeBron is 32 years old. So
I feel like it should go without saying, but Kareem Abdul-Jabbar went to 4 years of college,
exactly, yes,
and LeBron James went to no years of college.
Exactly. So LeBron's 7th. We know he'll move up the list. That will be the question. Will he catch Kareem? Will he do that? So that's the big picture there. He keeps moving up the list, as we've talked about, the trouble they may be in this year in the playoffs.
Off the top.
Meanwhile, the Houston Rockets yesterday, in a loss to the Trailblazers, set the all-time NBA single-season record for most three-pointers made.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's the ones they've missed that have hurt them as of lately. Tuesday against the Warriors in their loss, they were 5 of 31. They lost last night to Portland. They were 8 of 34. James Harden is shooting just 32% over his last 2 games, including just 3 of 22 from three-point range. And who do they play tonight? They play Golden State, who's won 9 straight games, and in that time, you mentioned it yesterday, they're the best in the league in defensive efficiency. So they got it rolling right now, and Houston, which lives off their offense, can't hit threes in their last couple of games.
That's an interesting game tonight with the Warriors.
Yeah.
You know, trying to make it 10 in a row. They haven't lost since they rested everybody on that Saturday night. So that should be a good game tonight. Also tonight, the Thunder and the Spurs. Russell Westbrook looking to make it 5 straight triple-doubles.
Yep. He recorded his first career triple-double against the Spurs in his last meeting. He's trying to become the 4th player to go consecutive games against the Spurs and have a triple-double. Larry Bird did it. Magic Johnson did it, and James Harden did it. He's looking for his 5th straight triple-double on Friday. He had a 7-game streak earlier this year. Only players in NBA history to have multiple 5-game triple-double streaks. Not shockingly, Oscar Robertson and Wilt Chamberlain. So that's the company he's been keeping all year.
And finally, the Final Four is upon us. The women's Final Four begins tonight. Stanford, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and UConn, the games on ESPN2.
How about that? What a bad note for Mississippi State. They're the 2 seed. Connecticut's the 1 seed. They played last year in a Sweet 16 game.
Don't tell me.
The Huskies won, which isn't shocking.
Don't tell me.
They won by 60.
I told you not to tell me.
I'm sorry. I was telling everybody else.
Sorry.
I should have told you to hold your ears. It's the largest win by any team in NCAA tournament history in the second round or later. Mississippi State was 0 for 14 from three-point range. If you're their coach...
for the record, here's what you tell them.
Yeah.
None of the same players are on UConn. They all went in the WNBA draft. They went 1, 2, and 3. Then they came back, and they're still unbeaten, but it's like an entirely different team.
To your point, only 2 of Connecticut's current players have started a Final Four game. Katie Lou Samuelson and Gabby Williams. That's it. You're right. It's a new group. They had no preseason All-Americans.
I can do the pep talk. I can do the pep talk to the women of Mississippi State. And I'm convinced we can play. We can keep this game to within 20. I mean, they beat us by 60 last year. I'm telling you right now, they'll only beat us by 20.
and that's a kind of
that's
a win. And then number 2 Stanford against number 1 South Carolina. It's Tara Vanderveer, the coach for Stanford, and Dawn Staley, the coach for South Carolina. They've met a few times, but won most of the time as coach and player when Staley was at Virginia, and Vanderveer got the best of her a couple of times there, and when they coached against each other one time, Vanderveer got the best of Staley.
That is Off the Top with Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. More independent agents sell Progressive Insurance than any other brand. Find an agent at Progressive.com. Now that's Progressive.
Do you show that tape? If you're the Mississippi State coach, do you show any of that?
Did you do what the Xavier guys did? You set fire to it and then carry the ashes around? Remember that?
Yeah, the urn, carrying the urn of the February, the month of February.
Yeah.
But, I mean, when you're playing UConn, do you look for some wacky motivational thing now? Because, I mean, you're basically spitting into the wind. You know, they're going to lose at some point. We don't know when. Maybe never. Who knows? But do you try something out of the box? I have no idea. I don't know what I would do in that situation.
I don't know. Here's what I don't know. I don't know the matchups, I will confess, well enough to know if Mississippi State plays the game of their lives and UConn plays a step less than their best,
where that
can
is.
They win?
Right.
So, and if you're the coach, and candidly, I have to believe, and I would defer to you on this, but I have to believe, even if you're the players, you know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
You know we can beat them.
Yeah.
If we play great and they don't, we can beat them. Or we can't beat them no matter what happens.
You know, you go into, obviously, look at the last game when UConn played Oregon. So you go in with the positive attitude of playing. Oregon in the first, so you have to play the game of your life. Oregon had 17 turnovers in the first half.
Yeah.
I mean, you can just see it all happening and unraveling in the first quarter against it. That's the thing, is how well can you stay with them early on, because you know they can just barrage you at any time. How long can you withstand something like that?
It would seem to me sometimes when you know you need to play the game of your life, that's when you play your worst.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
When you're trying too hard.
Every little mistake is
hard.
amplified. That's why every Super Bowl used to be a blowout, because a team would get behind by 10 points, and the next thing you know, they'd be trying to make it up, and they'd throw 3 straight interceptions. And, you know, and that's what used to happen with that. So we'll see. Anyway, women's Final Four begins tonight. Men's Final Four begins tomorrow. I got a couple of notes on that for you in a second. But first, I came across this just now. I'm just scrolling around on Twitter before we started just to see if there was anything out there that would catch my eye, and Viz did. Now, you, Golic, are very manly. I'm working on my manliness, right, in my Mamba state. Mm-hmm. So you know that I went to the black coffee for a while.
I do know you did that, yeah.
Couldn't take it. It's just horrible. I mean, life is too short. I did not like it at all. I mean, I was drinking, all of a sudden I realized, why am I doing this?
Did you try different, because different coffees have
tried
different
the Americano.
Okay, I remember
which
you
is like an
about
espresso with water. You know what it was? disgusting. I could not stand it. Now, I mean, God bless you all who like it, but I'm so much happier with my latte. I mean, I'll live with the carbs, and I'm getting on with my day. Okay, so I'm really enjoying my latte, and I don't want to hear about it. But anyway, you like strong coffee.
I am I like it strong. So I don't like it when it tastes a little burnt, but I like it strong. I like it to give me a jolt. Yes.
Well, you know what's available now? If you want something to give you a jolt, I have just the thing for you. Here's a story on CNN. This is a product that has been available in Cape Town, South Africa, and is just now becoming available in the United States. It is called Black Insomnia. It is the world's strongest coffee.
Really?
Strongest coffee in the world. It was created by a man named Sean Christopher, and he has been selling it in Cape Town, South Africa. For $19 a pound. You can get this coffee in your home, and you can, brew it and make it and all the rest of that.
Okay, all right.
I'm going to give you just how much caffeine is in it, okay? So if you were to drink a Coke that has a little less than 3 milligrams of caffeine in it per fluid ounce, just by comparison.
Sure.
If you were to have a Red Bull, that has 9.5 milligrams of caffeine.
Okay. All right.
See, I don't have no idea what these numbers mean.
See, I know people drink Red Bull to get a jolt, so
that's a jolt.
That's a jolt.
Less than 10.
Okay.
Less than 10 milligrams per ounce. This coffee, Black Insomnia, has 58.5 milligrams of caffeine per fluid ounce.
Oh, my God.
And it comes with a warning. Like,
it would have to.
All the time we'll be watching our games, and there's always, like, they advertise all these different medicines.
Right.
And the warnings are always longer than the benefit.
Oh, yeah. It's like, why am I taking this to cure this when I'm basically going to die from it?
So this comes with the following warnings, according to the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. It makes it easier to consume more caffeine than you intend to. Effects can range from mild to severe. For example, jitteriness, nervousness, restlessness, trouble sleeping, or cardiac arrhythmia.
Whoa!
Cardiac arrhythmia. And then in parentheses, a regular heartbeat.
So I could have my regular cup of Joe.
Yeah.
And have an irregular heartbeat.
It's not impossible. They're telling you that that's on the list of potential options. How much must you love this coffee to be able to possibly undergo heart palpitations, irregular heartbeat, something that would probably approximate the sensation of having a heart attack in order to drink this cup of coffee?
So obviously it's all about the bean. It's got to be one of the strongest beans out there.
I don't really know how that works, but okay.
The bean is called Robusta.
Oh, here, they put it. Okay, it's got
Robusta.
A sweet, nutty taste.
Yeah.
It's a type of bean called Robusta. I would imagine it's Robusta.
I love these last couple of lines. Caffeine Informer, a consumer information site. Caffeine Informer.
Uh-huh.
It's devoted to help people understand caffeine. Lists Black Insomnia as one of the most dangerous caffeinated products. On Caffeine Informer, they say that if you drink more than 20 cups of Black Insomnia, you win the Darwin Award. An award for people who pass away doing stupid things. Is that 20 cups in one sitting?
I mean,
or is there a limit of 20 for your life?
Well, I have to believe you wouldn't automatically die from drinking 20 of them over the course of your life.
Holy smoke. You know what, though?
Would you try one?
Yeah. Oh, without question.
You would?
Yes.
Would you have a cardiologist on standby?
Yeah.
I would advise it.
I would, listen, I would have the number in the phone ready to hit send, or maybe have to throw it to you to hit send if I, go into some sort of the arrhythmia thing. That's a lot of caffeine.
A lot. I mean, again, I don't know from – I wouldn't have known ahead of time what any of the numbers meant, but it's 6 times a Red Bull.
Well, that's exactly right. I know the Red Bull is the popular thing. The Red Bulls, the 5-hour energies, and what they have. Those are the jolts. So for that to be 6 times.
Yeah. I had the story here. Like a regular here it is. I still have it open. Like a regular cup of Starbucks dark roast is 21.
Oh, it is?
That's 21. So, but this is still like almost 3 times that.
So the Starbucks dark roast is over double a Red Bull.
Per fluid ounce, correct.
Wow, okay.
That's it. It says 21.25 milligrams of caffeine per fluid ounce.
But that's still a little less than 3 times less than the Black Insomnia.
Correct. The Nespresso has a very strong one. There's something called Death Wish coffee, which has 54 milligrams, and then there's Black Insomnia, 58.5.
We're showing a picture of the bag of
Black Insomnia.
Black Insomnia, the beans, and it's a black bag, and it has an X on it.
Yeah.
I mean, It almost seems like you're just kind of tailoring to the people that want to risk something. It's like the hot pepper eaters.
Yeah.
You know, that's who you're like tailoring to.
But those will forgive me if I'm totally wrong, and I'm not going to try and encourage anyone to do anything. Like when you did the Ghost Pepper Challenge, that's not likely to kill a person, is it? I mean, it could make you very uncomfortable.
It makes the day a rough one, as I well know, yes.
But, I mean, they don't put a skull and crossbones.
I don't know.
It's like the Oakland Raiders insignia is on this bag of coffee.
Yeah, I don't know what throwing that amount of heat of a pepper, if you do it in a large amount in your body, what it would do. I can't imagine it's good, but I'm very curious as to the taste of this.
Yeah, I would have a sip.
I really am.
I wouldn't have a lot, but I would have a sip.
I would take the first sip as just the black coffee to see what it tastes like.
Just to see what it tastes like.
And then I'd load in my milk and
no, I would then stop and give you the rest because I'm not drinking any of it. If the heart palpitations are involved here, I'm not interested.
Call there.
All right, I've got a good question. I want to ask it now. I have a million things we didn't get to here, but what the heck? We're Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Great guest list today, including Junior, who's on his way in, and Bruce Bowen and Doris Burke and Grant Hill and a whole lot more on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line. But Mikey brought up this question, and it's a really good one. So I'm going to ask it now. Newzo, get a poll ready. You ready? We're going to do a poll question today at Mike and Mike on Twitter. And I'm going to take what he basically asked and turn it into a question the way we would normally phrase it. I'm telling you right now, you have to bet an amount of money that significantly matters to you on one of the following two.
That's $10 and okay.
Okay. Option number one. Yeah. The Cleveland Cavaliers will win the NBA championship this year.
Okay.
Option number two, the Cleveland Cavaliers will not make the NBA Finals. You have to bet on one of those two. So which of those two, and I'm talking about you have to bet whatever is a meaningful amount of money to you. Mikey asked, I'm giving him credit. 4:02 this morning, I'm getting out of the shower, and I hear him bring that up with Robin, and I thought, that's an excellent question. Huh. Because it's really easy to say, well, look, they'll get it together. They'll get through the East. But do you feel real good about right now the way they look that they're going to beat Golden State, or even if they got San Antonio or whomever they got? But do you feel real good that they're not going to turn the Jets on and lose to Boston or lose to Washington or lose to Toronto? So which of those two is the likelier scenario? Which are you betting on? We'll put the poll question up at Mike and Mike on Twitter.
The best of Mike and Mike.
At 4 o'clock, I get out of my shower, and Robin Lundberg and Mike Golic Jr. open their show, which precedes our show, Coast to Coast every day with this, and I always like to listen. As I've told Robin many times, I hear the first couple of minutes, and if there's anything I really like, I steal it, and I don't credit them. Then you guys became national. He used to do that show locally.
Yes.
I used to steal that, and only the people in New York knew it. Now I feel like I have to give credit where it's due because many people have the option of hearing it. You had that kind of an idea this morning, and so we have taken it and made it the topic on the show this morning. Good morning, Junior.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, that's usually how we judge our success, is the more stuff we've heard you guys rip off from us, then we consider it a good show. So anytime that happens, and this morning in particular, now that I've made it up onto the poll question, I really feel like I've arrived in a sense.
Rip off?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't it like a team thing where we share information and not rip each other off?
If you want to use that as like a euphemism for what goes on, sure, I'm okay with that because you guys are the big brand. You're the flagship program here at ESPN. Right. So imitation, sincerest form of flattery, all that stuff. But call it what it is in its truest form.
One way or another, it was a very good question. So they opened the show this morning talking about the struggles of the Cavaliers who lost 10 games in the month of March, and like the old saying goes, sort of roared into March like a lion and go out like a lamb. But I think there is still a prevalent school of thought that people think they'll just get it together. When it matters, they'll turn the light switch on, et cetera, et cetera. But I heard you cite, Mike, this morning, and I saw it as well, that 538.com running their models only give the Cavaliers a 2% chance of winning the championship. Now, I'm not exactly sure what they base that on, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So Junior raised the question. We have it as our poll question right now at Mike and Mike on Twitter. And Mike Golic Sr., you're going to be the first to answer it. You have to place a bet, an amount of money that actually matters to you, your mortgage, whatever it is, on one of two, on only one of the following two options. One, the Cleveland Cavaliers will win the championship this year. Two, the Cleveland Cavaliers won't make the finals this year. Which are you betting?
I'm going to say because it's something we haven't seen in the last few years. It's defense, and it's bad right now. I'm going to put my money on they don't make it to the finals. That's where I'm going to go. I mean, it's not like they're just shooting poorly, but they can shoot themselves out of that because they have great players and great shooters and some great scorers. This is something where the personnel isn't going to change. Maybe the intensity level will, the want-to level may, but when you get to those better teams, and really I'm talking about, it could be the finals in the Eastern Conference, depending on who that is, and if it's Golden State overall in the finals for a 7-game series, that's some consistency they need on defense, which they haven't shown as of late. So because it's so out of character of them from the last 2 years, I'm going to say I'll bet that amount of money that they won't make it to the finals.
Whether they wind up 1 or 2 at this point, and they're currently half a game behind Boston, there are really 3 teams that I think we could realistically see giving them a go. So one would assume they'll have to get through 2 tough series.
Right.
They'll have to get through 2 of the following 3 teams to get there. Raptors, Celtics, Wizards. We don't know what the order will ultimately be. Junior, which would you bet?
I would bet basically this version of Tiger against the field. I would bet the field and say that they're not going to win the finals. I would be much more comfortable in believing they'd get bounced. For LeBron James, would be the first time in the last 6 years that he would get bounced before the finals, but that's just the way it looks. And I know there's a statistic to back this up that I'm forgetting, but basically where the Cavs rank defensively, no team has been able to turn that around and win an NBA championship playing that style. And it really is, I think, a combination of a lot of things coming to a head. There's a lot of attrition and a lot of miles on this current Cavs roster.
Cavs ranked 23rd in NBA in defensive efficiency, to go to your number. Only one NBA champion in the last 20 years has ranked outside the top 10 in defensive efficiency. That was the 0-1 Lakers. They ranked 19th. Kobe and Shaq, obviously, on that team. They were able to overcome that and win the championship.
And this team has LeBron, and it has Kyrie, and it has Kevin Love when he gets it going a little bit. And they have some pieces. And I think that, the 62-second, those glorious 62 seconds or whatever it was that they had the big man in the middle in Bogut, they were a much better team for that minute. But
we all remember it fondly.
But what a minute that was. But if I had to bet this, I would bet they'd win the championship. I still think when push comes to shove, they're going to get it together enough.
Oh, you say you're betting the other way.
Yes,
they win the
I would go opposite the two of you. Now, that's not to say if you gave me the Cavs or the field, I would take the Cavs.
Right.
But given this set of options, I believe they will get through Washington, Boston, and Toronto. I do. And thus, I think it is more likely that by the time they get there, they're looking great. What was it? The first year LeBron was in Cleveland, they weren't the 1 seed. They had a lot of ups and downs. They were under 500 midway through the season.
Right.
They turned it on. They swept Atlanta, and they looked really, really good going into the finals. They lost Love, and then they wound up losing Kyrie, and that was all she wrote. I still think there's a better possibility that we'll get to June 1st and be like, remember when we were worried about the Cavaliers? Then there is that we're going to be 2 weeks from now, we'll be like, oh, my God, they're down 3-1 to Toronto.
It's one of those things that if it happens that way, I'm not going to sit here and be shocked. I'll lose that money I couldn't afford to lose because that's what I'm betting on. But it's kind of like the MVP. I would vote for Harden if Westbrook wins it. I'd be like, okay, that's cool. I would say the better chance of them not making it than winning the championship, but that wouldn't surprise me either.
There's also a very real chance we don't get out of the first week of April without feeling differently about this, because I heard Brian Windhorst on one of our platforms here bring this up, but the Cavs, I mentioned it this morning, in the month of March played more road games than they ever had in the history of their franchise. And so that sort of attrition starts to add up. And now they've got a 3-game homestand. I believe it's the 76ers, the Indiana Pacers, and then the Orlando Magic. So 3 pretty winnable games back at home for them where they can get comfortable. And this is a chance for them to go out there and kind of right the ship against some bad teams before they shut it down and start doing the real end-of-season rest that we're accustomed to seeing before the playoff push. And we're 3 very quality, better-looking games from the Cavs away from all of a sudden rewriting a lot of this narrative.
You're right. It's Philadelphia, Indiana, and Orlando all at home. Then they go to Boston, and then they do a home and away with Atlanta, and they're at Miami and finish up in Toronto or home to Toronto.
So let's see how many of those games are meaningful, especially the Boston one.
Yeah, Robin brought that up as saying that's the one where if you really want to build up to a crescendo, throw out your best pitch for that last game at Boston and then shut it down there.
All right, Mike and Mike, a lot of Twitter reaction, 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed to the coffee conversation. You never know what people are going to latch onto. I just came across randomly on CNN's Twitter feed a story about a new coffee called Black Insomnia, which has 58.5 milligrams per ounce of caffeine. Now, I wouldn't have known how much that is. By comparison, it's almost 3 times as much as a cup of black dark roast coffee from Starbucks. It's 5 times as much as a Red Bull. So, and it comes with a warning that suggests among the possible options is that you might suffer some sort of cardiac arrhythmia from drinking it. So, Mike Golic Jr., you're something of a daredevil. Are you interested in a cup of black insomnia?
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely intrigued.
You're in.
Very intrigued. I mean, listen, as someone who drank a bottle of A1 steak sauce, I felt some things in my chest that probably weren't normal. So I have to imagine comparatively this would be a little bit easier.
Now, you said, which one do you follow on Twitter?
Death Wish Coffee. Death Wish. They're the one that has
and
like
you do that for what reason, just out of curiosity?
I was kind of hoping for the follow back to see if we can move some product here. We're being truthfully honest. You guys got a big platform, too, so if you guys are listening, I already follow you. Let's make this happen.
We got some Twitter here. John Wright tweets, you're not a coffee drinker if you haven't experienced the heart flutter. And TJ Allen says, please have Golic drink a cup of it on the air. If there's one problem with that, Mike, is that we've learned, what does legal not have?
Well, a sense of humor.
They don't have a sense of humor.
Because there's no doubt TJ saying, please have Golic drink this on air. He wants to see me go down.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like watching the races, right? You want to see that crash?
No one wants to see you drink it and just say, oh, that's tasty.
That's really good. They want to see the heart arrhythmia.
But listen, I've got a comparatively younger heart. I'm willing to take up that mantle.
I appreciate that.
You'll try a cup of it.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do it together, and we'll see if there's a different impact
effect on
age and all that. We'll do a little study here. Are the two of you wearing the same shirt?
Basically, yeah. Donuts and deadlifts.
Oh, my goodness.
In whatever order you want.
All right, here.
Yeah, another brand that I'd follow on Instagram. Appreciate it, guys.
So you have a couple of your buddies coming over tonight for the game. How you feeling this year about your bracket? When you head to Walmart to pick up Coca-Cola 6-packs and Powerade 8-packs for tonight's tip-off, you have to check out this site with NCAA March Madness tips, Coke.com/alwaysready. It's full of fun stats and tips that you usually don't think about when you're filling out your bracket. So not only does Walmart have everything you need to be ready for the tip-off like Coca-Cola and Powerade, but if you head to Coke.com/alwaysready, they're helping you with your bracket as well.
Yeah, for those of you keeping track of my Mamba progress, I had to abandon the black coffee. I just couldn't take it. I felt like it made me manly, but life is too short.
So you're not going to drink the black insomnia we talked about in the first hour, the most powerful coffee in the world?
No, it can cause heart palpitations.
Yeah, 58 milligrams of caffeine.
I will take a sip of it. I would like to see what it tastes like, but I will stop there.
You can take that before the workout.
I could. I'll take that before the workout. Just a sip. I'm having a sip of that before the workout.
Now, lower than that was Death Wish coffee, something, Mike, that you have been looking into, right?
I had picked them up on social media a while ago, so had been familiar with the brand. The skull and crossbones on the bag sets a strong tone.
So Matt tweets in that he drinks Death Wish coffee every couple of months. So not the black insomnia, but the Death Wish, which is a step lower.
Lasts a couple of months?
Yeah. I drink Death Wish coffee every couple of months, and it's intense, but not as intense as it seems, but it does make my face tingle. It's really not what I'm looking for in my cup of coffee, though that would be an experience.
I tell you what, as someone who's on the air at 4 a.m., that excites me
greatly. You want your face to tingle? Yeah.
Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, Brucey Bowen on the way, Doris Burke, Grant Hill coming today. Mike Golic Jr. is in our studio right now in the middle of a conversation about Colin Kaepernick, because this is a very interesting topic to me. I have heard a lot of people in the know write some very interesting pieces suggesting that it is a quarterback of his accomplishment and with his numbers, the notion that he is not currently on a roster clearly demonstrates that he is being blackballed. And I've heard a lot of people whose opinions I value arguing the other side of that. I think both are, my own opinion is that both are a little bit true. I'll explain that in a moment. But first, we talked about Kyle Shanahan's take on this. Mm-hmm. Let me read you what Chip Kelly said, because Chip Kelly was his coach last year. And this is from MMQB. He talked about whether or not Kaepernick can be an effective quarterback. Quote, he's big, athletic, he can hurt you both throwing and running. The last couple of years he was banged up. I think he's going to be better next year than he was this past year because physically he will be better. Remember, he didn't start last season because there were injuries going in, and they started with Blaine Gabbert, but he took over a few games into the season. Then maybe the most important part of this, on whether all of the issues surrounding Colin Kaepernick were a distraction to the team, because that's the word, that's like a catch-all phrase that NFL people love to use. Everything can fall into this bucket of distraction. Chip Kelly said there was zero distraction. He met with the team immediately after his first protest. He met with the other team leaders. He explained his position and where he was coming from, and literally that was it. Colin was focused on football. He was all about the team and trying to help us win. When Colin is with us, he is 100% football. There's not, hey, coach, I don't have time for this. That was never him. All of that never affected how he worked or what our workplace was like, and that's a credit to Colin. That's Chip Kelly talking. Mike, how significant is that to you?
Well, that's leaving football in the locker room and having it there. And Mike, you were in a locker room, the latest out of, you and I. It's been a long time for me. But my thought, when we start talking about distraction, sometimes I think that's an overused word. I think the Colin Kaepernick situation was a distraction to an owner, and what a fan base was thinking. Was the fan base continue to support that team, or how would they react, and how would advertisers react? And I'll just say this: you chime in. What you to me, a locker room, when it comes down to it, you play for your teammates, but in the pros, it's also about self-preservation. I'm playing for my job. I'm worried about my job. So what Colin's doing, I may not agree with, but I'm worried about my job. I'm worried about, if I'm an O lineman, making my block, not let that guy get to Colin Kaepernick. If I'm a D lineman, making a tackle, getting a sack, whatever. But I'm worried about my little fiefdom, the team, but more about my self-preservation.
Well, yeah, and usually when this stuff comes up, it's in the understanding of when guys are doing things that are actually detrimental or bad, and you're saying, well, as long as he shows up and does the right thing at work, I'm willing to overlook that. Now, we're dealing with something here that is not an objectively bad thing that he's doing. I mean, far from it. At this point, you can't point to one thing that Colin's doing now and say he's doing anything that's not overwhelmingly positive here, and he's distanced himself from the kneeling and stuff. But to your point about the locker room too and distraction, I mean, a locker room for me was always, locker room talk came up a lot in bad ways over the last year. That was always a place where you could have discussions like this. And while disagreement is a part of that, it was at least a place where you come to it with enough mutual respect for each other because of your shared profession and the things you both know you've both done to get there, that it allows it to happen. So I think this is very meaningful to hear from a guy in Chip Kelly who I heard Bomani on when he was on with you guys say has had issues in the past with, seeming from the outside has been dubbed by people as someone who had issues at times with strong-minded black players.
So the way I view it is this. What I'm about to say, I believe 100% to be true. If this qualifies as being blackballed, then so be it. I'm not sure exactly how I'm defining blackball in this situation. I don't think there is an organized
collusion
on the part of the owners.
That's what it would be.
They're
It would be collusion.
Right. But I believe there is some number of NFL owners, and I'm not exactly sure how many. So there are 32 teams. It may be 10, 12, 16, something in that neighborhood of NFL owners who will just not have him on their team. Regardless of how much he may help or any other reason, they just will not. And that immediately cuts in half the number of places, or in whatever percentage that is, the number of places he might wind up. Now, if you look at the remaining teams, some of them don't need quarterbacks. Again, We don't know which owners we're talking about. I can guess on a few of them. I mean, there are a couple of obvious ones. Just using the New York Jets, who are a team that needed a quarterback going into this offseason. Their owner was the single biggest fundraiser for Donald Trump that there was in the presidential election. I don't think he was. I've said on the air in San Francisco during the Super Bowl, there was no conceivable chance the Jets were going to sign Colin Kaepernick. That just wasn't going to be on the list of options. Think of that what you will. But my point is, there you start knocking off teams that might have been interested in him in the first place, and I think that goes a long way towards him having a hard time finding a place to land. And then you look at, half the team. I mean, if you're Green Bay, New England, all that, you don't need a quarterback. So the options start to dwindle from there. I don't know if that qualifies as blackballed or not, but that's what I believe is happening.
Yeah, blackball has become the word, just like distraction has become the word. And for me, it hasn't really been either of them. Distraction to me means attention, and that's about role. If you want Colin Kaepernick as a backup quarterback, which whether it's a lot of whether you believe what's being said on a lot of different fronts here. And one of the reports is that Colin wants to be a starter, wants to be paid his worth as a player, which everyone should be entitled to.
Everybody can ask for what they want.
Everyone can ask for what they want. And the one thing you say is, well, these are individual owners who are allowed to make their own decisions. And that's a fine premise if you want to operate under that they can make that decision. But then what's the root of that decision? They're making that decision from a place of hate. They don't like what he did. And so that's why you laugh at the whole crowd that was saying, well, I disagree with what he was saying, but not how he did it. Or I said, I don't disagree with what he was saying. I disagree with how he did it.
Right.
Well, all of a sudden you're kind of exposing yourself because he's not doing that thing anymore. He's just out there giving to people and helping people and said he's not going to kneel. So now that's on you. If you choose to say, I'm an individual owner making that decision, just know that that's what you're supporting. That's the line of thinking that goes to. And you can't escape that, because this is what it comes down to. You mentioned the public spin for all of this, is you can't spin this the way you can domestic violence or any sort of other crime where you can say, oh, well, he's rehabilitated. We're committed to giving him a structure to help him change. There's no change in who Colin Kaepernick is. And so you can't sell that to a fan base that in the NFL is a different demographic than some of the other leagues that we've seen.
Yeah, listen, you may not like what he did, the socks that he wore, a shirt that he wore here and there, but you can't deny what the help he's giving out there now to people. I agree with you about the owners and how it looks, and Greeny, I agree with you. There are some owners that have just flat said he's not coming to our team. How many of that is, I don't know. What I think is going to happen from a football sense with Colin Kaepernick is I think he'll get a job after the draft. I think the draft will go. The teams will get these young quarterbacks wherever they're going to get them. And I don't know where they're going to get them. If it's a 2 in the first round, 3 in the first round, whatever. And I think that once that settles in, quite honestly, a landing spot for him, I think, what if Cleveland doesn't take a quarterback? If Cleveland doesn't take a quarterback at 12, they're not going to take one at 1. 12 would be the next spot. Will they take one there? Maybe they'll trade for more picks. Who knows? With their new train of thought, their thought process, if they don't think one of these quarterbacks is franchise-worthy, maybe they trade out of there and get more picks. So that, to me, is a team that could be a possibility after the draft. So I think after the draft, when the dust settles on where these quarterbacks have gone, who has the young quarterbacks, who has the old quarterbacks, where can there be a quarterback competition, where does he have a good shot to be a starter, that's when I think he'll end up signing with a team.
That's a good way of looking at it. So I just pulled up literally, the NFL standings. I will just name a team. Let's find teams where Colin Kaepernick is demonstrably better than what they currently have, right? Where there is no question but that it would be an improvement if they got Colin Kaepernick, and see if this seems like a logical place. In the AFC East, there is only one, and that's the Jets.
Right.
I'm assuming Tannehill is going to come back healthy.
Right.
Yep.
Then there's only one, and that's the Jets. And I'm telling you right now, I don't believe that's an option.
I agree.
Yes.
In the AFC North, there's the Browns.
There's
the Browns.
The Browns, and to his point, to me, has been the overwhelming example, even if they do take a quarterback at 12. Because outside of one in Deshaun Watson, who we see as a complete package, the other two are seen as kind of projects. And in a best-case scenario for a team in the Browns that improved this offseason some, but is still not going to contend for the AFC North in any realistic chance or any sort of playoff sense there, makes a pretty decent stopgap guy if you want to give one of those young, inexperienced quarterbacks in Trubisky or Kaiser, who's looked to be the second coming off the board, a little time to develop behind a guy that's shown he can be confident with a terrible team. Why not this team? That's provided they do something with Osweiler, who's still on the board.
The one thing that we don't know is what their feeling is of Cody Kessler. And if they want to give him another shot, to maybe be the guy here. That's what we don't know.
Houston?
Well, I think Houston is, without a doubt, waiting on the Romo situation, right? They have to be they need to go get a starter. They are in prime position to get somebody to help lead that team. And the one thing about Kaepernick to Houston the one thing that you look at, the one number that you look at and you say, okay, I can deal with this, is the number 4. You only do 4 interceptions. You're going to rely on your running game. You're going to rely on your defense. You have some pretty good weapons on the outside. You don't really feel like you have to throw a ton. He doesn't turn the ball over, but I do think they have their eggs in the Romo basket.
That's one, though they definitely have that, and that situation's gotten strange and complicated in ways that I didn't think possible, but you're right. I mean, that team has a lot of these same calling cards that Colin Kaepernick's really good San Francisco 49er teams did, basically being built on defense first and foremost, but a ton of weapons on offense. And Bill O'Brien, we always give him credit for being that quarterback whisperer. There's a guy who put your money where your mouth is and start to tailor an offense to his skill set there.
Jacksonville.
That's one of those where you got the old school Tom Coughlin. Is he going to want, again, whether you think it's fair or unfair, that's going to be a thought process. I don't know what Tom Coughlin's feeling is, on Colin Kaepernick, but that would have to be a pretty important thing, wouldn't it, on his thought? Because I have said now, I said it last year, and I'm not talking out of school, and I've said it before, Blake Bortles is not the answer to that, and I think he's going to be gone, whether it's after this year or not. And I do think you'd rather have a youngish quarterback there for a few years and not a guy just for a year or two. So I just don't know if it passes the Tom Coughlin test.
Yeah, considering that's a guy that's already getting knocked by the league for doing some interesting things with the NFL offseason program, He doesn't seem like a guy that's going to fly with all of the outside attention that this would bring. Because then again, that's an important part to note in all of this is that as Chip Kelly made notice, this isn't attention or distraction from inside. This
outside.
is everyone looking in from the outside trying to make a big deal out of it.
This is Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, half the cost. Denver.
Just think, if he wanted to take a pay cut, he probably would have been on Denver, huh?
I mean, there was all that talk last year about the possibility of a trade.
Denver
now he's a free agent.
Denver seems to be more and more going. Again, you never know what the talk is that you want out there, but the talk sounds like they're going more away from Romo and saying we like what we have, we want to be a running team, but they don't have that great of a running offense to say we want to be a running team. So it would be nice to have a guy that could pass, and their passers are more passers from the pocket, and Simeon and Lynch if he's ready to go. That would be an interesting one to me as well, because he gives you that added dimension of, if you want to be that a great running team, well, you got a quarterback that can run as well.
It would have been a lot more interesting to me if this was still a Gary Kubiak team, because with that offense where you want to run the ball, play action, pass, on a team that you're right, got lumped into that we've got a great defense and run game narrative without having the run game to go with it.
They really did, wasn't it? Well, defense and running game, and we were like, well, wait a minute, where's the running game?
That's laziness, because those things usually pair together, so people just sort of lump that in there, forgetting that they really couldn't run the ball worth a damn.
Thing. You're right about that.
And then finally, in the NFC, there are really practically no options.
None.
You would have said the Bears, but they've signed Mike Glennon. That's the end of that. The Vikings have Sam Bradford. I mean, basically every team in the NFC is set at quarterback except for San Francisco, and he's obviously not going back there.
The two that the young and the old that you have is you have probably Carson Palmer just about done, and you have Goff for the Rams just starting. So, you know, I think you're gonna let Goff kind of go now. I would imagine. You say, okay, let's start the learning process.
You'd better.
There.
I mean, after everything they gave up to get that guy, if you're going to give up on him
I would
now,
think so. And then for Arizona, I think it's going to be another year before they look for that next guy, you know, whether it's a young guy that they build with or an older guy that has a few years left, depending on the team
that's a place where I could see, to change the subject, that's a team I could see in the middle of the first round taking Mitch Trubisky or someone like that. If you like that guy, you say, all right, we're going to have Carson another year or two. This guy needs a redshirt season. Let him come in and learn from a seasoned pro. That's the direction I could see that team going at quarterback, something like that. Much more likely, I think, than signing Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah, I've heard some people say that Mitch Trubisky is like a quarterback that Bruce Arians would build in a lab, so you have a feeling that there could be some affinity there. But it does get interesting, and so it again goes back to, you do believe the reports where is Colin Kaepernick going to staunchly go out there and say, I want to be a starter, I want to be paid X amount, or when the draft shakes out, he can look at situations and say, all right, I can at least go in here and compete.
Right.
Because there's a couple of those spots where it waffles. There's a guy there, but we've seen in the past, if you can go in there and be better, I mean, Russell Wilson's the most recent example of that, where they had just paid Matt Flynn all that money,
right,
and all of a sudden you get a guy that comes in as a draft, now, albeit a draft pick there, but it could
still
be just
a third rounder.
Still a third rounder, but it just could be Colin Kaepernick coming in. I mean, $9 or $10 million for a quarterback in this NFL is
cheap.
chump change.
Yeah,
so coming in and usurping a low-level starter is not out of the realm of possibility for him.
It is Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage in America's largest and most dependable networks. Mike and Mike, don't forget, baseball season is around the corner. Opening night, the Cubs and the Cardinals, presented by Firestone Tires. That's Sunday night. It begins 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and the ESPN app. And then it's 8:30 Eastern on ESPN2 and the Watch ESPN app. Baseball season snuck up on us this year. I mean, this came sort of like out of nowhere. And along with baseball season come, of course, all of the delicacies of baseball stadiums.
Wow.
And with all credit in the world to Buster Olney, who sent this to all of us this morning, the Texas Rangers released a list of all of the concession items that are going to be available at their ballpark this year. And there were some very interesting ones, and no one loves concession items more than Golic's. So I would ask you, I know you've both had a chance to look over this list. We don't have time to get into all of them.
No. There's
so give me one that jumps off the page at you and says, this is one I absolutely have to have.
There are two. I'll give you my number two, and then you can do that, Mike, and then we'll give you number one. This is, again, for the Rangers at Globe Life Park, 19 new concession additions. My number two, I think, is the Crunchy Barbecue Burger. An all-beef patty stacked with smoked pulled pork covered in Sweet Baby Ray's signature barbecue sauce, pickled red onions, cilantro with a layer of nacho cheese, corn chips on top.
Whew.
Wow.
Heavy breathing.
So that doesn't sound good to me, but all right, go ahead.
Okay.
Doesn't sound good to me.
All right, number two, Texas Snowballs. Shredded brisket, rolled into balls, dipped in a funnel cake batter, and then deep fried and covered in powdered sugar. Only $9.50 to a steal.
Okay.
That's a steal.
I'll say right now, that was my number one. There is nothing to me.
That's not even food. Guys,
you
you recognize that's not
all
food.
the best food.
Every food group is in there.
When you combine multiple things that are good, like the old adage about, I like hair and I like butter, but the second you see a hair in the butter, it ruins both. Those are not foods. Shredded brisket is not meant to be rolled into a ball. Protein. It's not meant to be dipped in funnel cake and covered in powdered sugar. That's not what's supposed to happen.
Everything. You can mark this down. It's in the Geneva Convention. Everything is better deep fried.
Yeah.
Geneva
exactly
Convention.
Right. I mean, you have every food group. That's my number one. Again, shredded brisket rolled into balls, dipped in funnel cake batter, deep fried, covered in powdered sugar. Give me 10.
Okay. You guys saw. Did you have a favorite?
You have
one?
number one.
Number one.
That wasn't even your number
one.
That
was my number one. I have crunchy barbecue burger and Texas snowballs. Mike has Texas snowballs and
heart palpitations. Never, ever quit. Shaved ribeye steak topped with mozzarella sticks, fried jalapenos, waffle fries, onion rings, and white queso.
That is pretty impressive.
That's how I want to die.
It's called the NEQ. Yeah. Never, ever quit.
It probably would kill you. Shaved ribeye steak, okay, topped with mozzarella sticks.
Not mozzarella cheese. Mozzarella sticks.
A whole other dish.
Yes.
Fried jalapenos, waffle fries, onion rings, and white queso. Again, doesn't sound good to me. If you guys peruse this list, you did see they have one for me.
I did.
Did you see the one I would like?
You mean the one that's in the suite?
No.
Strawberry quinoa summer salad?
Yeah. Oh, no. No, I missed that.
The veggie wrap?
That does sound good. No, the Mediterranean nachos. Stacy's pita chips covered in chickpea hummus.
Not your wife's.
No, you've seen Stacy's pita chips. They're delicious.
It's a joke.
Covered in chickpea hummus and garlic, basil, tomato, and country olive salad. It's at the Ballpark Vegan Stand. Which is in section 16, by the way.
I would push anybody out of the way who is trying to serve me.
You don't think that sounds good? All kidding aside, that wouldn't sound good.
There's nothing about that sounds good.
I would eat it because I actually dig hummus. The problem I have is calling that nachos is false advertising.
Yeah, really
nachos are designed to cause pain. There's nothing painful.
And
there.
you can buy that at the Ballpark Vegan Stand, which places the Golics will never be. Ballpark Vegan Stand.
I could see us O'Doyle style, like pushing one of those over the outside of the stadium bounds.
Get rid of that. Bring in another hot dog vendor.
Who rules?
We need more deep fried brisket balls.
The best of Mike and Mike.
We are Mike and Mike. Bruce Bowen is here. No buttons on his shirt, not Velcro either. And Stephen A. Smith is ready to go. Stephen A., of course, first take 90 minutes from now, live 10 Eastern on ESPN. But Stephen A. was listening to our conversation earlier about a variety of different topics. He wants to chime in, and we are delighted to have him. Good morning, Stephen A. Smith.
Good morning, guys. How are you all doing? Mike, it is wonderful to see you. Bruce Bowen, my buddy, I'm pretty ticked at you this morning. What really annoys me about you, Bruce Bowen, what really annoys me about you is this. The question was about Phil Jackson and whether or not Scottie Pippen was right. This is no character question about Scottie Pippen. It has nothing to do with the situation. It doesn't matter what Scottie Pippen did about not going into a game which was egregious 20 years. It does not matter because the question is, was he right in what he said? It's a yes or no question. It's not about, Scottie Pippen did this and Scottie Pippen did that. Was he right? And are you trying to tell me, are you going to sit there with a straight face and tell me that man is not right, that Phil Jackson needs to be going to New York City? Is that what you're going to say?
I'm going to say that, Stephen A. Just as I'm going to tell you, did you do your sit-ups this morning? Because we have this understanding. I know I have been calling you every day to make sure you're doing your sit-ups. I heard you telling people that you've lost weight. I'm glad about that. But I don't think you've been doing your sit-ups because if you had, you wouldn't have time to come up with all these types of situations that you come up with on TV.
Actually, you know better than that because I work tirelessly. That's number one. Number two,
that sounds like an excuse coming.
I was doing 150 sit-ups this morning while I was listening to you and your gibberish. And number three, I'm not the one you need to be talking about with sit-ups. You need to be talking to the dude to your right. I love you.
And I'll say this, Stephen A., and your support. I think what Bruce did there was completely avoid the question. You asked him a question, and he managed brilliantly, I might add, to segue into your sit-ups, which, of course, have even less to do with Phil Jackson than what Scottie Pippen didn't do 23 years ago.
I'll say it. Phil needs to be gone. Bruce, does Phil need to be gone?
No, he doesn't need to be gone. the players need to be held accountable. It's not the teacher's fault that you didn't learn whatever you were supposed to learn. Excuse me, Stephen A. Excuse me?
Players are not good enough. The players are not good enough, which you know. And number two, and more importantly, you've got Phil Jackson, like Greeny pointed out a little while ago. Phil Jackson, what GM or president sits up there and tells you, this is the system that I want you to run no matter what your talent says you can do? Who does that?
Other GMs that do not have 12 championship rings may do that. But he has the rings. He has the know-how. He knows what needs to take place. It's just unfortunate.
He also has 3 years of a track record that shows it doesn't work. He also has 3 years. Not 3 months, 3 years. 3 years. How much time you want to give him? What, you James Dolan now? You want to give him 5 years for what he's doing? Which is it, Bruce?
Here's the thing. Your analogy about if the students don't learn, it's not the fault of the teacher, it's the students. But if the students are 6th graders and you put them in calculus,
right? Well, it's not
then
calculus.
It's not their fault they can't do it.
It's not calculus. We're talking about players that are capable. Porzingis is having a good year. Would you agree with me on that? But he's a kid. He hasn't been corrupted by the other shenanigans that take place within this league, within the whole me type of deal. He comes from a place where it is about team basketball. It is about maximizing your effort. And Courtney Lee, he's had a decent year for the Knicks. The go-to guys haven't been able to do what is necessary, and that's where I say that's the accountability aspect of the whole situation. Derrick Rose has to be held accountable. Carmelo has to be held accountable. It's not about Carmelo leaving. It's not about,
Hold on, guys. Greeny Golic, watch this, because I got lying to y'all on national. He's lying to y'all on national TV in the morning. Bruce Bowen, work for me for a second here. You're tight with Popovich, right? Because obviously you play for Pat Riley, you play for Popovich, you play for Larry Brown. I mean, obviously you've had coaching is very, very important. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who was Phil's first coach? Who was Phil Jackson's first coach in New York? I think that was Fisher. Derek Fisher never even coached AAU.
And you know what?
And then after that, it was Kurt Rambis, who was 100 games under 500 in Minnesota. Okay, and then after that, who was it? It was Jeff Hornacek. I mean, I'm sorry, he's no game changer. He's decent, but he's no game changer. By the way, you even had dudes who won championships with Phil doing the triangle, telling him it ain't gonna work with this roster. The man wouldn't even listen to that.
Well, sometimes things don't work out as in Derek Fisher's situation. Now that's on him. He chose Derek. Derek had a wonderful opportunity to create something special. Now, if Derek was able to do something quite like Jason Kidd, then he'd still be around. But that's the roll of the dice. He gave someone an opportunity that didn't work out. But with the other individual, it's more about, again, paying attention to detail, doing what you need to do, and not worrying if you agree with it. Do your job, Stephen A. Do your job.
Mike and Stephen A. and Bruce Bowen is here. Let me get to something that actually matters. And we have a really good question on Twitter right now, the Mike and Mike Twitter page. It's a good question, and Stephen A., I want you to answer it. As the Cleveland Cavaliers wrap up a really tough month, they were 6-10 in the month of March. They've struggled terribly, particularly on the defensive end. We have a trivia question up on our page. Well, it's not a trivia question, but it's a poll.
Poll question. Yeah.
And we're asking you to answer it. If you had to bet an amount of money, Steve, that mattered to you on one of the following two, would you bet that, A, the Cavaliers will win the championship this year, or B, they won't even make the finals? Which of those two is the likelier outcome?
Oh, that's easy for me. I would bet that they would win the championship before they'd get knocked out.
So you're not worried?
I'd give them a better chance. I'm only worried about them in the finals. I have no concerns whatsoever about LeBron James going to the NBA Finals. Not against this Eastern Conference. As impressive as Boston and Washington have been this year, and Toronto on the come-up, particularly with Kyle Lowry coming back, I am not concerned about LeBron James in an Eastern Conference playoff series at this point in his career. I think this is all fodder. I think that they're setting the stage up because LeBron James likes to control the narrative. Disaster has struck. It's time for the panic button to be hit. Blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, when it counts most, you see a resurrection from the Cleveland Cavaliers. They buckle down, they hunker down, they sit up there and they get on lockdown, they get the defensive tenacity going, and, of course, LeBron James puts on a show. I'm not concerned at all with them in the Eastern Conference. I'm worried about them in the finals against a Golden State, I am not concerned about them at all getting to the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I would agree. That was the option that I chose as well. I can't say I'm not concerned about them at all, but I think it is infinitely likelier that we get to June and we're all remembering. Remember back in March when we were worried about the Cavaliers and their defense and when they have run rampant?
This is what he does.
Yeah.
This is what he stole storylines. It's just like Michael Jordan, and people get distracted and finding storylines to agitate them, and all of a sudden they go berserk. It's the same old stuff. LeBron has been a drama queen for quite some time. I don't say that, in an incendiary fashion. I'm just credit where credit is due. The dude has been a drama queen. Go ahead, talk about it's over. Talk about he's done. He's not going to get anything done. He's going to lose. And then all of a sudden, April and May rolls around, and you see a different beast at a different level. As the saying goes, there are levels to this. And LeBron James knows that. He will respond when it's time, and so will Kyrie. Don't you worry about it. It's no big deal.
Yeah, if I had to bet on it, that's the way I would go as well. All right, Stephen A's got to get ready.
Hey, thanks, Steve. It's good talking to you.
I don't want to talk to you, Bruce. I don't want to talk to you. Bye.
And now, insurance-minded speeches from Geico.
Hardship. My grandmother would go through it every month to pay her insurance bill. First, she would handwrite a paper check, in cursive. Then, using her own tongue, she would wet a stamp for an envelope. Today, however, we need not weary our hands and tongues. Today, we can pay our Geico bill with the Geico app. Away with hardship, in with bill pay on the Geico app. Thank you.
Again, the name Bruce Bowen trending for a variety of takes and his dancing. Mm-hmm. Tim tweets that robot dance was off the charts.
It was. It was extremely good, yeah.
Jeff Klein tweets, Golic, it's not the player's fault when Phil is forcing them to run an offense that doesn't work with players that don't fit.
It's still the play. I still put most on the players. I disagree with Bruce. I put some on. I put a decent amount on Phil as well. I think it's just a bad mix right now. As one person tweets in, Phil Jackson rings came with him as a head coach, not as a GM. He needs to go. I do agree with that, but I still say you guys are on the floor. They're the ones that have the most effect on a game.
And Brucey used the analogy of if a student doesn't learn, it's not the teacher's fault. And I tried to give a response saying it is the teacher's fault, or it's not the student's fault if they're sixth graders and you put them in a college calculus class.
Sure.
Here's a better one. I wish I had said this instead. Roy tweeted, if one or two students fail, that's on the students. If they all fail, it's on the teacher. Jackson is at fault. And I think that's a pretty good way of looking at it.
I get that, but I put the higher percentage still on the players. But I'm not giving a percentage, 60-40, whatever that is. I am definitely blaming Phil for some of his moves. But at the end of the day, I am putting it on the players mostly who are on the court. But as I said, I do think they need to end that relationship with Phil and the Knicks.
All right, other stuff to get to. SportsCenter brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Other wireless providers say they'll cut your bill in half, but who knows what kind of coverage you'll get. With Straight Talk Wireless, you get nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks, and their no-contract unlimited plan is only $45 a month. Is Richard Sherman about to get traded?
I don't think so. It's a situation where if you're a team, you always answer the phone. And there have been calls about him, and a trade. Now, you can never say never because you never know what somebody's going to offer for him. But if you're asking me, I would say no, he is not going to.
Why are they talking about it so much? See, yes, I get it. You're always answering the phone. I'm guessing the phones are ringing in basically every general manager's office every single day with trade scenarios that we never hear about. But they've made a point of making sure we've heard about this. So why is that happening?
Could be a message, a public message to Sherman.
From Pete Carroll?
Sure.
About yelling at the offensive coaches and all that stuff? All that stuff. So when we're at Disney World at the Pro Bowl, and we had, who was it? It was Michael Bennett and and Doug Baldwin. And Doug Baldwin. Right. And they were terrific. I mean, it was a terrific interview. They're both really smart, interesting, insightful guys. And we had them on, and they were yelling at me, claiming that people like me, the media, make too big a deal of it when they see stuff on the sideline and when Richard Sherman is getting into it with offensive coaches and whatever it is. And now here we are a couple of months later, is the coach sending a public message to Richard Sherman to stop doing that stuff by basically telling the world, we're considering trading?
I don't know if it's specifically to that situation, but you absolutely could be, because you're right. You won't hear about 90% of the phone calls going on, but Richard Sherman is a big name out there. But it absolutely could be a message. I'll say this. I let a lot of things slide on the sideline for the emotion of the moment, but that doesn't mean, I'm not going to lie, I see an offensive player go over to my defensive coordinator and start, complaining about what we're doing on the field. I'm going to have a problem with that. I'm going to have, stay on your side. That's going to be for the moment, and we'll get over that. We'll get over it. But there's some territory there.
Because that's personal now.
Yeah, there's some wait a minute. Whoa.
I get it.
You got your side. We got our side. Everybody do their job, come together. You'll let it go a little bit on the sideline of a game like that with emotion, and you understand that. There'll be some emotion back at them. Listen, we've seen these guys, the defensive guys, all yelling at one another. That happens. I'm just saying, I would, if in my years an offensive guy came over and started, saying something to Jeff Fisher as my D coordinator or Wade Phillips as my D coordinator, saying, hey, why are you doing that? Why? There'd be some sideways looks from the defensive guy saying, whoa, you get back over there. But it would be over then. So it would happen. So I'm not saying there's a specific message sent here about that, but it could be an overall message of, hey, nobody's untouchable, and we take phone calls and we listen.
Alexa, how old is Richard now? Because he's still a really good player. If you watch them play this year, that defense wasn't all year. Say it again. Say it louder.
29.
So, he's getting close to that age where at that position, look what happened to Revis. Great, done. Right? That's what happens. That is always such a fascinating reminder to me of how insanely athletic the sport is. Because you go from 60 to 0 in football faster than in any other sport.
Yeah.
One day you just look up and this guy's finished. Because that 0.2 of a second that might feel like nothing actually is the difference between being an all-pro and being out of the league.
And they still have a window open there. That defense is still really good. You want to keep those pieces together. They got to improve that offensive line. You have a great quarterback in Russell Wilson. They were there. They have had success. And I think Schneider, the GM, has done a nice job of keeping a lot of those pieces together, on that team. I really do. So I think they should try to do that while that window of opportunity is open.
I agree. So my point is, I just find it fascinating that these stories, these rumors, these reports, they don't write themselves. They don't tell themselves. They're coming from somewhere, and rarely accidentally. Almost all of the leaks that you hear about, in the sports world at least, are not being done by accident. Someone is trying to get that out there for a reason.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Are we back? Our Sports Center brought to you by Goodyear. We were busy laughing. I missed the go in my ear. Sports Center brought to you by Goodyear. Superior tire performance where the road takes you for traction and handling in challenging weather. Choose Goodyear. Everything they learn making tires for expert drivers inspires what they roll into yours. Goodyear, more driven. See, I'm kind of torn on this because there's a part of me that I'm trying as I get older to be an open-minded person and to say, look, I'm not trying to convince the world of my point of view.
Right.
I want to hear everyone else's point of view. But if you're going to put pineapple on a pizza, I have an issue with you. It's not a pizza.
It doesn't affect you, though. You're not eating it, right?
Yes, I'm not even looking at it.
Okay, but it still doesn't affect you at all.
I was a waiter. In a very, very good pizza restaurant. It's the only job I've basically ever had outside of the broadcasting business. I was a waiter.
All right.
I was a darn good waiter, too, I might add. And
what made you a good waiter?
I worked with the customer.
Did you annoy people, though?
Probably, but not purposely.
Okay.
I felt I am a frequent diner, as you know, in restaurants. So I generally feel like I have an idea of what people are looking for from the service that they get from waiters because I know what I'm looking for, and so I tried to provide that.
Okay.
And I actually enjoyed that. It was a good job. I know people all the time talk about it being a terrible job.
Did people order pizza with pineapple on it?
No, we didn't even sell it. It wasn't available.
I wonder when it became a thing.
I don't know, but whenever that was, we should go back and strike that day from our history.
I'm really amazed at how big of a deal you're making this when it has zero effect on you.
Oh, it has effect on me. Manny Walker tweets, a coach's job and management's job is to put players in the best position to succeed, not to force systems on them and trash them publicly. Here's going back to the Phil Jackson, Scottie Pippen, Carmelo Anthony discussion. And I will say it this way. When you take over a franchise, like what I like about John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, like I ran it just 2 days ago. I'm in a place eating lunch, and a guy walks up to me and says, Greeny, what's going on with my 49ers? I said, they're getting it exactly right finally. I have no idea if Shanahan and Lynch if it'll wind up working, but that's what you do. It's down to it's very basic. You're as bad as you can get. You give the blank canvas. You find people you believe in.
Yep.
For whatever reason, you find Kyle Shanahan, you believe in that guy, and then Lynch, you're taking making a bet on him. And let them go. Give them 6-year deals and let them go. And you know what they can do? They can build it in the image they want it, right? Whatever it is Kyle Shanahan wants. He said Colin Kaepernick doesn't have the skill set of the offensive quarterback I want. Right. So that's good. When you take over a team, the first thing, when you can start building it in your image if you want. But as a coach in particular, your job is to create things, to play a style that suits the talent you have. I mean, that's the job description. If you're just saying, hey, guys, I know you're not really cut out to do this, but this is the way I've always envisioned playing, so we're going to do it anyway, that's terrible coaching, and it's terrible management, and that's what's going on, and that's why it's Phil's fault.
No, it's not. I mean, it's some Phil's fault. It's still mostly the players' fault.
But do you disagree with what I said?
No, I don't disagree with what you said, but it's about how much you're putting on each. I still put more of a percentage on the play. They're not running 100% triangle offense. They're not. Mike, that's not all they're doing.
Okay, but
they're playing other parts of the game as well, and they're NBA players.
Okay, but let me ask you a question. You were an NFL player.
Yes, I was.
Right? And if Buddy Ryan designed a defense and said, Golic, we're going to put you out on the end, we're going to kind of get you manned up on a tackle, and you're going to use your speed and quickness to get around him, and you're going to be our primary pass rusher. You would have tried as hard as you could, but you couldn't do it because that wasn't your skill set, right? You were born to be in the middle, plugging up the run and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So if you're putting people in a position that they're not, these are the best players in the world they're competing against.
How much do they run in the triangle?
Well, now they're running it exclusively.
Well, forgetting that's now. It's been a long while till now that they stunk.
Right.
Okay, with the players on the court, and they haven't been running the triangle 100%, 80%, 60%, 50%. 20%?
Well, but they
less.
That's whatever. The strangest season because they were like 500 for the first couple of weeks of the season.
So there is blame on both. I agree with that. I think Phil has done a horrible job, and I think that marriage should be over. But if you tell me to put a percentage on it, it's more on the players. Unless you tell me they're only running the triangle 100% of the time, and these guys just flat out do it, and Phil's forced and Hornacek to just run it over and over and over and over again, till I hear something like that, it's the players have to play and execute. I mean, are they... Even if you're running some of the triangle offense, I mean, you completely incompetent? I mean, you know what? I'll get there occasionally, even if I'm on the outside. Not as much help as I could be on the inside.
Yeah.
You still at the end of the day have to go out and try and execute.
Correct. But there's also, I mean, in that situation now, there's been a culture that's created that's so negative.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, what has been born from that is just been ugly.
Let's wrap it up with this. We talked about funny or unusual clauses in contracts. Rougned Odor got 2 horses as part of his contract. In order to pump up Houston Astros pitcher Roy Oswalt for his Game 6 start in the 2005 NLCS, team owner Drayton McClain offered an interesting addendum to his contract. If Roy Oswalt won that start, he would get a bulldozer.
Yeah!
Something that Oswalt had wanted for quite a while. Sure enough, Roy Oswalt won his start, and McClain awarded him his very own bulldozer.
That is awesome.
So he was able to doze with bulls.
Yeah.